My dad called me trash for building a $20 million business without a degree, so I walked away. When Natalie built a $20 million business from scratch without a college degree, she thought her family would finally be proud. The gift that shattered everything. My name is Natalie, and at 32, I built a $20 million business from scratch, no degree, no connections, just relentless work. For years, I quietly supported my family financially, hiding the scale of my success to avoid their judgment and jealousy. But on my father's 60th birthday, I decided to change that. I bought him a very special gift, a fully funded retirement account. My plan was to present it at his birthday dinner, along with the truth about my company. I believed that, after this, they'd finally see me for who I truly am, and that pride would replace their skepticism. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a typical middle-class family. My father, Richard, had been an accountant for 30 years, convinced the only true path to success was a college degree. My mother, Helen, was a schoolteacher who silently supported his views. My brother David and sister Claire followed the right path, degrees, stable careers. I was different from the start. While other kids joined school clubs for their resumes, I ran ventures. At 10, a lemonade stand with loyalty cards. At 13, computer repairs for neighbors at $20 per hour. In high school, I launched an online store selling custom phone cases and made $2,000 before graduation. I tried to fit in and enrolled in college, but after one semester, I knew it wasn't for me. The business courses were taught by people who'd never run a business. My father exploded. "You're throwing your life away. No daughter of mine will be a college dropout working for minimum wage." I left with $2,000 in savings and moved into a rough studio apartment in a sketchy neighborhood. The first months were brutal: cheap food, 18-hour workdays, and one business failure after another. 3 ventures tanked quickly, but each taught me more than any lecture could. The turning point came when I met Catherine, a seasoned entrepreneur, 20 years my senior. She became my mentor, showing me that education comes in many forms. At 22, I launched Coastal Crafted, a platform connecting American artisans with customers nationwide. The early days were grueling. I slept on a sofa, worked from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and crammed my living space with office equipment. 8 months in, a lifestyle blogger featured one of our artisans. Orders exploded, bringing in $10,000 in 3 days. When I called my father, eager to share the news, he said coldly, "That's nice, honey. But it's probably temporary. You can always go back to college when this runs its course." His words lit a fire in me. I would prove him wrong, not with arguments, but with undeniable results. 5 years later, the company had grown to 400 artisan partners in all 50 states, a full downtown office floor, 38 employees, and a $20 million valuation. And still, I kept the full truth from my family. I quietly helped them whenever they struggled: $75,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, $40,000 for David's house down payment, $50,000 for Claire's wedding. Always anonymously or with a cover story. I waited for the right moment to reveal everything. That moment came on my father's 60th birthday. Dinner was filled with chatter about my siblings' careers and vacations. Nobody asked about my work. When dessert was served, I finally spoke. "Dad, Mom. Coastal Crafted was recently valued at $20 million. We've had several acquisition offers, and last month I was featured in Business Insider and Entrepreneur magazine." Silence. Then my father's voice, sharp and dismissive. "What's that supposed to mean? These internet businesses use funny math. Sounds like you just got lucky." I stayed calm, explaining our revenue streams and partnerships. But David cut in. "Some of us have real careers with actual qualifications." I pushed forward and handed my father the envelope with the retirement account details. His face darkened. "What is this, charity? You trying to act like you're better than us?" I reminded him of the times I'd helped with Mom's medical bills, David's house, and Claire's wedding. The truth hit the table like a grenade. "That was you?" my father barked. My siblings looked shocked, even offended. "You've been playing the big shot behind our backs. Making us feel like charity cases," David spat. And then the words that cut deeper than anything before. You're still just uneducated trash who got lucky. Get out of my house. Your money doesn't make you part of this family. Nobody defended me. Nobody stopped me as I walked out. That night, sitting alone in my car with shaking hands, I realized I had found success, but I had lost my family. Boundaries drawn in salt and light. I drove to a hotel because I couldn't bear the sight of my childhood street. In the sterile quiet of the room, I replayed every word from that dinner until the sentences felt like bruises. Had I flaunted it? Had I misread them for years? At midnight, I opened my laptop and did what I do best, track the numbers. The truth, in black and white. $75,000 to the hospital and specialists for mom's cancer treatments. $120,000 total toward David's house purchase and urgent renovations he couldn't delay. $50,000 to rescue Claire's dream wedding. $22,000 for Dad's car when the engine died. $35,000 for Mom's kitchen remodel. Countless little emergencies, insurance gaps, holiday travel, school fees for nieces and nephews. Nearly $300,000 over the years, quietly wired, quietly covered, quietly forgotten. When my eyes finally closed, it was sunrise. I woke to a text from Claire. Dad is still upset, but he'll get over it. You know how he is when his authority gets challenged. Not sorry. Not that was cruel. Just a gentle expectation that I would absorb the damage and restore the old order. I booked an emergency virtual session with a therapist, Dr. Mitchell. I told her everything, the dinner, the numbers, the words that still felt lodged in my throat. She listened the way a good investor listens to a pitch, no interruptions, just intelligent attention. Family wounds cut deepest, she said. And success threatens systems built on hierarchy. Your father's identity as provider and authority was challenged. Your giving, however loving, rearranged the power in the room. I journaled for hours after we spoke. Memories I'd skinned over sharpened, winning a teen business contest while everyone clapped louder for David's varsity letter, Dad praising Claire's internship while calling my first website cute. The message had been steady and subtle for years, degrees were currency, everything else was novelty. A week later, Claire called. I let it go to voicemail. Natalie, please call back. Dad feels bad about what happened. We all do. But you have to see how it looked, walking in with a valuation and a retirement account. It was inconsiderate to the rest of us who've worked hard for our careers. Worked hard. As though I'd slept my way to a supply chain, napped through logistics, lucked into vendor contracts. I deleted the message and poured coffee. David's text followed. Family is family. Let's move past this. Past what, exactly? The part where I was uneducated trash? Or the part where nobody stopped him? 2 weeks after the dinner, I made a decision. Not a rageful one. A clean one. I would move to the beach house in Naples, Florida, the one I'd bought as an investment property and barely used. I'd keep the company running remotely, my leadership team could handle the ops. I wrote a letter to my parents and mailed it the old-fashioned way. I've spent years seeking your respect. I hid my success to keep the peace while covering financial gaps none of us talked about. When Dad called me trash and told me to leave, I heard the truth of how you see my path. I won't keep paying for access to basic dignity. I love you, but I'm stepping back, for my sanity, for my self-respect. If we rebuild, it must be on mutual respect, not credentials. No theatrics. No pleading. A line in ink. Naples greeted me with heat, salt, and sky. The house was all glass and angles, beautiful, a little cold. I warmed it room by room with artisan pieces from our partners, North Carolina quilts, Vermont stoneware, New Mexico textiles. My workday shifted with the tides, strategy calls at dawn, vendor reviews by noon, product roadmaps after a barefoot walk along the shore. Quiet widened my thinking. Decisions got cleaner. My ops director, Tyler, noticed first. You sound steadier, he said. Like the noise got turned down. The noise had always been the same old argument in my head, earn your place. Prove your worth. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. The ocean didn't argue back. I joined the local chamber of commerce and a women's business network. In Ohio, I'd minimized everything. In Naples, I told the truth. Respect arrived without being auditioned for. I made friends, real ones. Samantha, who owned a gallery, introduced me around. Our dinners were lively and blissfully free of credential worship. We talked about margins, artisanship, and the romance of good operations. I laughed more in a month than I had in a year. And then the article hit. Not the first, this one mattered because it was local. Naples Business Journal put me on page 3, e-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar enterprise to Naples. The piece was thorough, well-sourced, valuation, jobs supported, our mentorship pilot. A few days later, bigger outlets picked it up. Old classmates commented on LinkedIn. Teachers resurfaced what I always knew. Small business owners messaged to say they felt seen. Then my hometown paper reprinted a version, Local Entrepreneur Makes National Impact. The kind of headline that makes relatives remember your number. My mother texted. We saw the article. Very proud, dear. My father followed with a voicemail engineered for plausible deniability. Natalie, great news in the paper. There must have been a misunderstanding last time. Call me. A misunderstanding. That word did heavy lifting. A week later. We're thinking of visiting Florida next month, Mom wrote. Would love to see your place. I booked another session with Dr. Mitchell. You have options, she said. Say no. Say yes with boundaries. Or say yes and invite an honest conversation. But don't bargain with your dignity. I chose the middle path, yes, with terms. You're welcome to visit. Before that, we need an open conversation about the birthday dinner and the names I was called. If that's on the table, I'll host you for lunch, hotel stay, not my house. Mom agreed quickly, too quickly. We just want to get this behind us. The day they arrived was impossibly blue. I met them at a waterfront restaurant where the public view kept everyone's temper hemmed in. They looked smaller, tidier. My father's voice was careful. You've done well, for yourself, he said, eyes on the horizon. For yourself. The old seam pulled again. When I named the words he used that night, uneducated trash, low life, he flinched. I was surprised, he muttered. I may have overreacted. An excuse, not an apology. Mom tried to pad the landing. It just felt like you were saying you're better than us. I never said that, I answered. I hid my success for years so you wouldn't feel small. And I helped because I could. The conversation circled like gulls, never quite landing. They wanted forward without accountability. I wanted forward with it. So I drew the map. You can visit the house. But from now on, no more name-calling, no belittling my path, and no rewriting my work as luck. We rebuild, if we rebuild, on respect. My father's jaw worked. He nodded anyway. They followed me to the beach house in a neat rental sedan. When the door opened and the gulf unfurled across the windows, there was a silence with weight to it. They wandered, slow and stunned, touching the hand-thrown mugs, trailing fingers across the quilt, pausing at the framed feature in Entrepreneur. Nothing to say to that except the obvious, I had built a life large enough to see. On the terrace, with the water turning molten under the setting sun, my father finally said the words I'd needed and dreaded. I'm sorry for what I said. He added qualifiers, about shock, about intentions, but the apology existed. I accepted it without pretending it repaired everything. Mom's eyes were wet. She talked about fear, about degrees, about the rules they were sure would keep me safe. Security is a story we tell ourselves, I said. There are 100 paths to stability. I chose one that fit me. We talked until the sky went violet. It wasn't tidy. It wasn't cinematic. But it was a beginning, and beginnings matter. They left the next morning. The house felt bigger, calmer. I made coffee and looked out at a boat skimming the horizon, its wake drawing white stitches across blue cloth. My phone buzzed on the counter. David, in town. Open the door. A shadow fell across the frosted glass. A knock, 2 quick raps, like he owned the rhythm of my day. I wasn't expecting him. I hadn't invited him. Milo, my rescue mutt, lifted his head and whined. I stood there, hand on the handle, pulse in my throat, and thought, this is where old patterns either walk back in, or stop. I turned the knob. The last loan. David stepped inside like the place belonged to him, his eyes darting over the vaulted ceilings and floor-to-ceiling glass. He gave a low whistle as the ocean came into view. Nice place. Really nice, he said, strolling toward the terrace. I didn't offer him coffee. I didn't even ask how his flight was. What brings you to Florida, David? He turned, flashing the same easy grin that had charmed our parents since we were kids. Family, of course, and, well, there's this investment opportunity one could use some advice on. Ground floor. Solid returns. Maybe a loan to get in. There it was, the real reason. The performance melted the moment he realized I wasn't going to play along. This is strictly a financial visit, then, I said flatly. I'm not lending money to family anymore. That chapter is closed. His smile twitched, stiffened. So that's how it is. You move to your beach mansion and forget where you came from. Dad was right about you. I didn't flinch. Dad called me uneducated trash and kicked me out of his house. Is that the part you came here to reinforce? David's bravado cracked. He didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. Family fights happen. That wasn't a fight. It was a revelation. Silence thickened between us. I opened the door. If that's all, I have plans this afternoon. He left without another word, and I stood on my terrace watching the tide, remarkably unshaken. Boundaries, I realized, feel uncomfortable in the moment, but right in the long run. That night, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called my lawyer and established the Natalie Entrepreneurship Scholarship, full tuition and mentorship for 5 community college students each year who showed entrepreneurial potential but lacked the traditional advantages. The selection criteria would focus on initiative, creativity, and problem solving, not GPA. Mentors would be entrepreneurs who'd built companies, not just taught business theory. It felt like reclaiming something I'd tried to buy from my own family, except this time, it would go to people who might actually value it. A home that became a life. Weeks passed. My beach house started feeling less like a property and more like mine. I planted a garden of native Florida flora, attracting butterflies and hummingbirds. I adopted a second rescue dog, a senior golden retriever named Daisy, overlooked by everyone else. Milo had a companion, I had another source of uncomplicated affection. Work thrived under the new rhythms. With remote operations, productivity actually rose. I implemented flexible work policies for my team, work from anywhere for part of the year, and morale hit an all-time high. My leadership team visited for a 3-day retreat on the deck, and we planned the next 2 years of growth while dolphins surfaced just offshore. Life in Naples gave me space to breathe, and in that space, I found something I'd never had, self-worth unhooked from anyone else's approval. The spotlight turns back. About 3 months in, Samantha texted me early one morning. Get the Naples Business Journal. Page 3. The headline, E-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar enterprise to Naples. It detailed Coastal Crafted's rise, our partnerships, and the scholarship fund. I hadn't authorized it, it was pulled from public records and interviews with vendors, but it was flattering, fact-checked, and free of tabloid fluff. Within days, bigger outlets picked it up. My LinkedIn filled with congratulations from old classmates, teachers, and entrepreneurs. Messages poured in. If you could build this without a degree, maybe I can start my own. You've inspired me to finally launch my store. Then my hometown paper ran a version, Local Entrepreneur Makes National Impact. And with that, the ripple reached my family. The invitations began. Mom texted first. Saw the article. Very proud, dear. Then Dad, in a voicemail so warm it could have been for a stranger. I always knew you had it in you. There must have been a misunderstanding last time we talked. A misunderstanding. A week later. We're thinking of visiting Florida next month. Would love to see your place. I agreed, on my terms. Lunch at a public place first. Hotel stay, not my house. And a requirement for an honest conversation before any sightseeing. Mom replied quickly. Of course, dear. We just want to put this behind us. The speed of her agreement made me wary. The lunch that drew the line. We met at a waterfront restaurant. They looked older, smaller, more formal than Florida required. Conversation hovered over weather and travel until I steered it to the dinner. You called me uneducated trash and told me to get out of your house, I said evenly. Dad's face reddened. I was shocked by your business news. I overreacted. An excuse, not an apology. Mom added. It felt like you were saying you're better than us. I shook my head. I hid my success for years to avoid making you feel small. I helped because I could, and wanted to. The talk circled without resolution, but I was clear. From here on, no insults about my path. No dismissing my success as luck. We moved forward only with mutual respect. They nodded, but I saw the reluctance in Dad's jaw. The house tour. At the house, their silence was heavier than the Gulf humidity. The ocean view, the artisan crafts, the framed press features, they couldn't deny the reality. On the terrace, with sunset painting the sky, Dad finally said. I'm sorry for what I said. The apology came with caveats, but it existed. I accepted it without illusion. That night, as the sound of waves filled the rooms, I understood, their approval no longer defined my success. I could build my life without buying entry into their affection. Respect over obligation. After my parents flew back to Ohio, the house felt quieter than before. Not empty, just settled. Calls with them became weekly, shorter, and less barbed. Claire eventually offered a real apology for her part in the family dynamics. We began rebuilding something resembling adult friendship. David stayed distant, except for the occasional holiday greeting, each one as impersonal as a mass email. Therapy remained my anchor. Dr. Mitchell kept bringing me back to the same truth. Success is not a substitute for self-worth. And no amount of giving will buy acceptance from someone determined to withhold it. I took that truth into business and life. I stopped downplaying my wins in interviews. I gave when I wanted to, not when guilt pushed me. And my philanthropy shifted from silent family rescues to public programs with measurable impact. The Natalie Brooks Entrepreneurship Scholarship became the centerpiece of that impact. We added a mentorship program pairing successful entrepreneurs without degrees with students facing similar obstacles. Watching them launch businesses and land their first clients gave me a joy my family's approval never had. A chosen family. In Naples, my friend circle grew into something I hadn't thought possible, a chosen family. We celebrated wins without jealousy, talked through failures without judgment, and respected each other's boundaries. My weekly dinner group, Samantha from the gallery, Tyler from ops, Marisol the restaurateur, and a few others, became my favorite ritual. We'd gather on my terrace, dolphins in the distance, salt in the air. No one cared where I went to school. No one measured my worth by my resume. Milo and Daisy would curl up at my feet as conversations stretched into the night. These were the moments that replaced the ache in my chest with something lighter. The 1-year mark. Exactly 1 year after I left Ohio, I hosted a dinner party for my Naples circle. As we ate under string lights with the Gulf glowing in the moonlight, Samantha raised her glass. To having the courage to choose respect over obligation. Her words landed like a final stitch in a long tear. That was it, the lesson. Family ties matter, but not at the cost of self-respect. Success isn't measured by the diplomas on your wall or the approval of people still stuck in outdated hierarchies. It's measured by the lives you touch, the integrity you keep, and the boundaries you refuse to erase. The real ending. My relationship with my parents still shifts, sometimes forward, sometimes back. My boundaries remain firm. I know they may never see me without the lens of their values, but that's no longer my burden to fix. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't pretending it never happened. It's letting go of the weight while keeping the walls that protect you. If there's one thing my path proves, it's this. Your worth isn't up for debate, especially not in rooms where love is conditional. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can give yourself is permission to walk out, and keep walking.